Hey y'all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. And if you're new around here, hello and welcome. My name is Katie Marie and I am a lover of eyeshadow palettes, and today we are talking all about eyeshadow palettes, and we're going to be diving into palettes that I wasn't fully convinced to buy until I saw that one shade that just got me, and I had to have it because of one singular shade. So I thought it was a really fun idea. I am collaborating on this video with a bunch of other YouTubers. We will get into that in just a moment, but let me go ahead and do my Instagram shout out for today. Today I'm going to be giving it to Nikki_Raven76. She commented on my most recent post, so thank you so very much, Nikki. You always leave the sweetest comments. I really do appreciate it. She is a YouTuber and has her own channel, so per usual I will leave her link down below so you guys can check her out. But Nikki, you are my Instagram shout out for today. And per usual, if you want to be featured at the beginning of my videos as my Instagram shout out, all you have to be doing is follow me on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92, interact with my content as it goes up, and then I randomly select someone when I sit down to film. Okay, so as I said, I am collaborating with a couple fellow YouTubers. All of them I know and love, and I'm subscribed to their channel, so this is really very exciting for me. And this time I have 5 fellow YouTubers, so I'm like 5 times more excited. But anyway, Betsy Gotcher. I always want to put an N in that, in her last name. I'm so sorry. But Betsy reached out to us and was like, hey, do you guys want to do a video together? She came up with the idea for this video, and she was like, I really enjoy all y'all's content. Do we want to just do a big old group collab? And we were all down for it. So let me run through my fellow collaborators real quick. As I said, Betsy, she has her own channel. I definitely highly recommend her. She is the newest one that I have discovered from the other people that I'm collaborating with, and I found her through Britt, who is also collaborating on this video today. If you do not already know about her, she is a fantastic YouTuber, very down to earth, has a great personality. She does lives if you prefer like live streams, or if you enjoy tuning into a live and being able to interact in real time with the creator. And then of course if you miss it, the replay is still there, but I love that she does so many lives. I think it makes it super fun. Heather Austin is also part of this collaborative group, I guess you could say. She is also doing this video with us. I've collaborated with her in the past, not too long ago, honestly. She is a fellow green love and eyeshadow girl, and we tend to eye and like the same palette, so I'm really curious to see her picks for this video. But yeah, Heather Austin is also doing this video with us, as is Karen Harris, another girl who loves greens. She is collaborating today on this video. I've collaborated with her in the past as well, so I feel like all of these names shouldn't be that new to you. Karen Harris is a tan girl, so if you're someone with a tanner skin, definitely check out her channel, as she often reviews things and shares her reviews from the perspective of, is it tan girl friendly, is kind of her tagline. So I really enjoy her channel. And then next up is Leora. I did a video, a collaboration with her not too long ago on her Influence of the Influencers tag that she created, so that name shouldn't be very new to you. But Leora, she does amazing Will I Buy It videos every week and talks about so much indie. So if you like indie, if you like eyeshadow palettes, definitely recommend her channel. If you like that Will I Buy It style videos, she does them every week, and they are always deliciously long. Delicious doesn't really sound like a good way to describe it, but they're just enjoyably long. How about that? A little less creepy. Anyway, that's everyone that I'm going to be collaborating with. So yeah, those are all the ladies. Per usual, they're going to be linked down below so you can easily find them. But anyway, we're all doing this video today and I cannot wait. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. I have a lot of palettes to talk about, and I chose all my palettes from the viewpoint of I was talking myself out of buying the palette and that I didn't need it, except there was this one shade that just drew me in so much I couldn't forget about it that I finally bought it. So that's kind of the scope that I'm taking it from and why I chose all these palettes. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. I didn't say, but this look should already be live on my channel, so I will leave it linked up here. I did a little tutorial, very relaxed, so check it out if you want to see it. But let's go ahead and just jump right into the newest palette that I bought, and I even knew when I was buying it that I was buying it for one shade, but it is the Glamlite Ice Cream Dreams palette. This palette, I was going back and forth for so long about it. I did recently put up 3 looks on Palette Plus reviews, so if you want to hear my thoughts on it, you can go check out that video and hear all about it. But every time I looked at this palette, it's like, you know what, you got a lot of pastels. You've been in pastels so much this past year, you don't need it. However, anytime I saw swatches or just I focused on this lower half of the palette, I saw the pistachio shade and I was just like, that's a really pretty green. I just could not get this shade out of my head, especially when they swatched it. It looks so good, so amazing. So yeah, when I finally did buy this, I mean, the yellow I was also very intrigued with, but the yellow just seemed more of a standard yellow. This green, however, for some reason, anytime I saw swatches of it, anytime I saw someone use it in a look, I was just like, oh my goodness, that green is beautiful and I want it so I bought it. And I bought a palette mainly because this huge palette too. It's not like it's a little 6-pan palette that I bought for one shade. It's a big palette. And not gonna lie, the kind of thing that threw me over the edge, or just pulled me over the edge, I guess you could say, was that pistachio shade, because I just couldn't get it out of my head and it just seemed so beautiful. So yeah, I bought a, how many does this have? 30? Yeah, 30 shadows. I bought a 30 shadow palette for one shade. Next up, do you guys remember the Dose of Colors Friendcation palette? This palette, I didn't pick it up when it first launched. I was really talking myself out of it, as I said, and also too, like when you look at it, it doesn't scream me. Like, it's a very neutral, but it does have that grunge to it that intrigued me. However, I was talking myself out of it until I saw anyone use this shade. Oh, do they have names? I think it's Dirty Money. This green shade, anytime I saw someone use this in a look, I was like, maybe I do want it. I think I do. And I eventually bought it. I think I bought it on sale. So it makes me feel a little bit better in that respect, but still, I bought this palette because I just could not get that green shade out of my head. Should I swatch these colors just to see? Let's go ahead and swatch them just for fun, because you guys always know I'm up for swatching palettes. So I'm going to take this pistachio palette because we already talked about the Glamlite palette, and I'm going to swatch on this side because I don't have any jewelry. So this is the pistachio shade. Such a pretty shade. And then let me go ahead and swatch Dirty Money. The amount of shimmer that they have in this shade is just so beautiful. It's a very messy type of shade. Like, it kind of travels up into my crease a lot, but there's no denying that this is just so beautiful. So yeah, this palette, that was honestly the biggest draw. The mattes in here were very neutral. I'm not into blue and purple, and then these are just kind of like that kind of typical mauve-y and then champagne-y color that comes in most any palette. So not a whole lot of this palette drew me to it, except that green, and I finally caved and bought a palette because it had a beautiful grungy greenish brown, honestly, as I'm looking at it. Greenish brown color, but the shift in the sparkle you see, it's beautiful. Okay, next up, the Riviera Palette. I almost didn't pick this, but I was like, you know what? I remember when I was seeing promos for this, the shade that screamed to me was this pink, and I was just like, oh wow, that pink is so bright. This palette is so colorful. It's going to be beautiful, and this pink totally drew me in. So that's why I'm putting it here, because when I received it and I kind of like looked at it hard, I was like, you know what? Cover up this pink. Everything else is very subdued. Like, it's still colorful. It's got the yellow, it's got the blue, it's got the purple, but other than that, like, it definitely took me by surprise when I actually received this palette. I was like, you know what? That shade that I was the most excited for, the really bright pink, is like the only thing that's really bright in this palette, and that totally threw me, so I figured it belonged in this video because this is a palette that I bought for this one shade, because when I actually looked at it, I was like, you know what, there's not really that, I mean, not to say that it's boring, it's just not super exciting. And also too, I think this pink was alright, but the quality of that purple is terrible. So anyway, there is that shade that I bought. It's very pretty, very bright, beautiful, but like I said, if you cover that up, it's amazing how much that brings down the palette. And not in a bad way, like I said, but just the color, the saturation, because when I first saw the promos and when I purchased this palette, I was like, oh my goodness, Norvina did a very bright and a bold color story. This is going to be so much fun, so summery, because it came out right at summertime. And then when I was using and, you know, doing looks with it, I was like, you know what, you could get a very boring eye look if you just like stayed down here with a brown. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't that bold, or at least not as bold as I expected it to be. So yeah, had to throw the Riviera in here as a palette that I bought for that one shade. Okay, next up, I don't actually have the palette that drew me in because it is from Anastasia Beverly Hills, but it's the Prism palette. However, I have a dupe palette of it, so I'm going to throw it in here because when they launched that Prism palette, I'm sure this is going to come as no surprise, but that limey green shade, which is here in this Prism Makeup Spectrum palette, this shade, I've almost bought that palette so many times for this shade, and I almost bought it off of like Mercari or something like that, but then I want to say, yeah, Prism sent this to me as PR, and so I was like, oh, I have the dupe, like great, now I don't need it, and I kind of let it be. But if I didn't get this in PR, I have a feeling I would have eventually bought it off of someone, off of Mercari or Poshmark or something like that, because I just could not get the shade out of my head. It's just like it's like a highlighter yellow, I guess you could say. Almost verging on green. Now the quality of this probably isn't like the ABH, however, it gave me what I was looking for and what I was wanting in that palette, so I figured I would put this in here. And like I said, it's not like I was wanting or that I purchased this palette specifically for this shade, but it's a dupe palette, so therefore I feel like it will qualify because, like I said, oh my goodness, when that palette launched, I wanted it just for that shade, and I didn't buy it because that was literally the only shade that I wanted in the palette, because everything else was just kind of like, not really me, not my tones, but that one shade, I couldn't get it out of my head. Even when people told me who purchased it were like, that shade really wasn't all that. It was kind of chalky and not that impressive. I still wanted it. So when I finally did receive this from PR, I was like, okay, like now I can set that to rest. I don't need to get that palette. I can kind of dupe it enough to satisfy the urges to get the palette with this palette. So I didn't pick it up, but that shade is just so fun. It's, yeah, like a highlighter yellow, verging on a green, but it's definitely more yellow, and it just looks so fun. And anytime that year, whenever it launched, I don't even remember what holiday season that was, but every time I saw it, I was just like, oh, but I really want you. Okay, this palette, I bought it for that one shade. I'm not going to say that I was really talking myself out of it because it was a collab palette, so I was kind of buying it in support. However, when I looked at the palette, the shade that screamed at me that I was the most excited for was the shade that, if it wasn't a collab palette, am I making sense with this? If this wasn't a collab palette, I think this would have been a palette that, for the majority of the palette, it's like, oh, I could take it or leave it, but there was that one shade that just screamed at me that I couldn't get out of my head, and that's why I bought it. That's what I'm saying. Though, in truth, like, I still would have bought this palette because it was a collab palette. It's the Paulina palette from Blush Tribe. That's no longer, but Blush Tribe collabed with Paulina's Beauty and created this palette, and I'm sure this comes as no surprise, but the shade I couldn't get out of my head was Friends. Oh my goodness, this looked so beautiful. And it is so beautiful now that I have it, but I remember seeing it in the pictures and I was just like, oh my goodness, that looks so pretty, that looks so pretty, I want it so bad. And like I said, I picked it up anyway because I did want to show support for Paulina. She did a beautiful color story and I really do like it, but overall, like, the palette doesn't scream me. These types of greens, while I enjoy them, they're not my favorite when it comes to greens. I don't know, they're my least favorite tone of green, I guess you could say. So I feel like if it wasn't a collab palette and they just launched it as a palette, I would have been like, oh, you don't need it, Katie, you don't need it, except for this shade that's in the palette, and I probably would have ended up buying it because of the shade. Is just so pretty. Like, look at that. Oh, such a beautiful green. I did a look, I remember when I reviewed this, it's on my channel. I have to think about which video it is. I don't remember the video I recorded, but I did a look where I had this all over my leg, kind of like today. I had it in a cut crease and then the deeper purples, I think like this in the outer corner. Still look, I think, back on fondly because it was so very beautiful. So yeah, that green totally outshines the one for the Prism Makeup Spectrum palette because it's just so much more vibrant and definitely more green leaning than the other one's, a lot more yellow. But yeah, that shade I could not get out of my head, and I was so excited when I finally got it and was able to use it. I think I used it in like every look because it was just too beautiful not to. She did a fantastic job with this. Okay, this is a little bit more recent as well. This is the PUR Festival 2.0, and if you watch my BoxyCharm unboxings, you would have seen me receive this in my box, and I remember going like, oh, you know, opened it up. This color story really isn't me. I don't think I'm going to use it. But this shade, when I actually looked at the palette and I saw this shade, it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I do want to try this palette. And you can watch the video because I go through it and you can hear me go, oh no, I don't, oh wait, what about this one? Like, this looks really pretty. It is kind of like a cross between a blue and gold, I guess you could say. I don't even know. It's very beautiful, very unique, so that's why I ended up trying this. So this isn't a palette I bought for the one shade, but it's a palette that I kept and used only for the one shade. So I do have a 3 looks 1 palette with this if you are curious, but oh, I have a little bit of pink stained on this finger. I don't think it'll mix, but this shade just kept, okay, there's a teensy bit of pink underneath it. It's not coming from the shadow. It's coming from this shade from ABH. But yeah, this shade totally was the reason I decided to use a palette, because when I actually looked at it, I was like, wait a minute, that's actually kind of pretty. I think I really want to use it. And even though this palette was filled with other colors that I was just kind of like, meh on, I ended up using it for that one singular shade. Okay, next up is also from Blush Tribe. This is the Laila 2 palette, and I missed this when it first launched, and so I was like, you know what, I don't need it, but I actually finally ended up buying it off of Poshmark because there was, I mean, this whole palette was very intriguing. However, there was this one shade I couldn't get out of my head, and that's kind of why I bought it. But it is this Bahia. This green shade, something about this tone of green. The yellow also really intrigued me, so if I could pick two, honestly, these two were very intriguing. But when we're talking about this palette, I feel like I got a lot of yellows like this, but this green, something about this green, I'm just like, oh yes, like, I totally want that. So that's honestly why I ended up buying it, even though, do I need another green palette? No. Did I need to buy it off of Poshmark? No. But I still did because this shade, something about it, I couldn't get it out of my head. I have a review for this palette out. I actually wasn't a fan of the quality. I don't know if my lights are a little bright. I feel like that's washing it out. Let me turn it down. Okay, now I'm going to be super dark, but hopefully you guys can see that shade right there. But I wasn't crazy about the quality, actually. I felt like it was very hard to build colors on top of each other. Like once you sit down a color, nothing else wanted to stick on top of it, that kind of thing. But I mean, there's no denying it. The color itself is beautiful. So yeah, this was a palette that I didn't ever get it when it was available and when Blush Tribe was still a thing. However, there were so many times I went on the website and was like this close to actually buying it because of that shade, but I kept talking myself out of it. And then they went out of business and I was like, oh shoot. So I ended up picking it up from Poshmark because, I mean, like I said, the whole palette is green, so it's very much up my alley, so it's very much a draw for me, but I couldn't get that Bia shade out of my head. Okay, next is the ColourPop Just My Luck palette. When this launched, I really did talk myself out of it. I was like, you know what? The greens, again, this tone of green is beautiful, but this is my least favorite tone of green to use. So really, when I see this, it's kind of just like, it's a green palette, that's fine. I'll wait for a grungy green. I'll wait for a lime green type of monochromatic palette. This is not my type of green. However, when I started seeing people use it, when I started seeing swatches, the one color I could not get out of my head was Mary Jane. This shade. It's kind of like these greens except shimmer. This shade is so pretty. Just wait. And even after I got it, while the palette I think is just okay, this shade is amazing, and if I ever get rid of that palette, I am absolutely taking this out and keeping it because it's stunning. Like, look at that. So beautiful. I know I'm super dark, but I figure we'll do the swatches, and then after we're done swatching, I will lighten it back up for the outro, but just so you guys can be able to see the swatches because all of these are very bright and like lime green and neon yellow. But anyway, this shade, it's amazing, and that's why I finally did go ahead and purchase it from ColourPop. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it, and yeah, no regrets at all. While I'm not crazy about the color story, the rest of the color story in this palette, this shade, however, amazing, totally worth the palette, and totally the reason I bought this. This is the Ace Beauté Vintage Dawn palette. This palette in general I thought was very pretty. However, anytime I saw promo pictures for it and anytime I open this palette, there is one shade that screams at me. And when I was looking at this and when it launched and I was looking on the website, I was trying to talk myself out of it. However, the one shade was just like, hi Katie. Hi Katie. Don't you like me? And I finally bought it, and it is the Horizon shades. You'll have to let me know if you guys can guess when I open these palettes which one I'm drawn to, but it is this Horizon shade. It looks like such a neon orange shade. It is so beautiful. Kind of reminds me of the orange I have on my eyes today, but it's from Midas. But this orange is just, it looks neon, it looks intense, it looks beautiful, and that's pretty much why I bought it. And anytime I open this palette to look at it, it just jumps right out at me because it's just so bright and beautiful. Let's swatch it right here. Oh yeah, so beautiful. So yeah, this palette, while I've kind of come to terms with the fact that Ace Beauté's formula is just not my favorite, however, I don't think I'll ever actually get rid of this palette because I really enjoy that orange. Maybe I'll figure out how to use it. I feel like this would probably work for kind of like the look that I did today. This orange would probably show up really nice on the lid for an all matte orange look, but I don't know. I love looking at this palette, mainly for the beautiful color story, but that vibrant orange mixed with these other tones, it just screams fall to me, and I love fall, so I'm always down to open a palette and look at a palette that just screams fall to me, so I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. But yeah, this is another palette that when I was trying to decide if I needed it, I was trying to talk myself out of it. I just couldn't because that orange was so beautiful. Alright, I feel like I flew through that, but I had like a good little stack of palettes to talk about. This was a lot of fun. It was so fun when Betty threw out the idea of like, hey, you want to talk about palettes? That one shade just convinced us to buy it, and I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I can talk about that. There are a lot of palettes I have in my collection that I only own because that one shade just suckered me right in. So this was a lot of fun. You'll have to let me know what you think. Here's the final like color story that I have going on. Not that I was trying to make anything, but I just thought it'd be fun to see what kind of colors stand out to me, and definitely that lime green is where I'm at apparently because that's what's standing out the most here. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down below. And another thing that I thought would be interesting is if you guys enjoyed this type of video, would you want me to do like a part 2 of this video idea where it's palettes that there's that one shade that just screams out to me that makes me want to buy it, but I actually haven't bought the palettes yet, so it could be like that one shade that's always trying to tempt me to buy it, if that makes sense. Let me know if you would want to see that, and maybe I can do that as a part 2 in a couple weeks. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you so very much to all the ladies who collab with me. Let's see if I can name them all off without messing up. We have Betsy, Britt, Heather, Karen, and Leora. Thank you so much, ladies, for collaborating with me on this video. I really did enjoy it, and as I said, all of their channels are going to be linked down below if you want to go check them out. I love all of their channels. I watch all of their videos. I really do enjoy their content, and if you're coming over from any of these ladies' channels, thank you so very much for checking out my channel. That really does mean a lot to me, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed seeing what kind of shadows I'm attracted to when it comes to palettes, and this is a little intro to me because I'm definitely very much attracted to that lime green and that really bold and almost neon lime green, yellow, whatnot. So yeah, thank you so very much for watching. That really does mean a lot to me. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up on your way out, as it helps me in the whole YouTube algorithm. And if you want to continue getting daily content from me, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92, and you can interact with me over there if you want a chance to be featured at the beginning of my videos. But yeah, with all that said, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you all very soon in my next one. Bye, guys.